On this week's Mailbag episode, the San Diego Padres complete a sweep of the San Francisco Giants, burying that team permanently. And Bob Melvin, we're going to talk about him maybe. And also talking about the Padres' rotation that allowed them to complete the sweep, the heroics from Fernando Tatis Jr., Jackson Merrill adding on to his campaign, Luis Arraez being on fire, and of course, answering some of your questions and comments from the week. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, September 16th. Hopefully you all survived the Friday the 13th weekend. Ooh. I, of course, as always, am your host, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Arraez. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiiipeno, or at @LO_Padres if you only want updates for the show and only Padres stuff. And go check me out on there. Go follow my work at Baseball, justbaseball.com. Great website where I read about the Padres and general baseball stuff. We'll be back at that soon. And I have been back at Baseball versus the World, my other podcast, which is about really silly evergreen topics. So go check that out at Baseball vs. World on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. This week we talked about movies that represent every American League team. That kind of, define every American League team. And this week will be the National League. So you guys get to hear what I think of the Padres. Today's episode, guys, we are going to be talking about this weekend series, obviously, and then answering some of your questions at the end, to which we received a few, including some fun ones regarding a certain Blake Snell situation. So that was interesting. We're going to be talking about that. Today's episode, though, is brought to you first and foremost by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Oh man, what a weekend. Look, we're going to start with yesterday's game, and I'm going to be 100% because, I don't like lying to you guys. I like to be as genuine as possible. I did not get to see or read any articles and breakdowns from anything that happened as much yesterday in terms of just, hardcore, hard-hitting stuff. I didn't really listen to the game as much because I was watching football. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am a Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray owner, by the way. I'm still going to lose this week, but that was electric. So 4-3 win for the Padres, completing the sweep, and it wasn't an easy one, despite the fact that they did get a great start out of the one pitcher this weekend that we did not necessarily know if we would get us a good start from them. Martin Perez, he goes 5 innings in this one, only gives up 1 earned run on 2 hits, 1 walk, 2 Ks, nothing dominant. He wasn't nearly as good as some of the other starting pitching performances we got that we'll talk about in a little bit, but he looked okay. I think he looked okay. I think that Perez, overall, I stand by my reasoning of him, which is that yes, it would have been really fun if the team was able to acquire a Jack Flaherty, acquire a genuine ace that you could bring with you into a playoff series that can be one of your dominant guys that wins a World Series. I don't think that's what Perez's role will be, even though I think that his time with the Padres has actually gone pretty well. I think that his value has just been a depth piece that has been able to come in, be improved a little bit, I think, under the tutelage of our boy, Ruben Niebla, right? I think he's done well there in that regard, and just been a nice depth piece as they ease in Joe Musgrove, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and of course, Yu Darvish, right? So yes, you lost Matt Waldron, but Perez has kind of made up for that with the Waldron thing not going south as it did a few weeks back. Him coming in and just being okay, I think, is all they could have possibly asked for. I will say, though, in terms of some people, and I saw a little bit of comments being like, is this a guy going to be starting in the playoffs? Because, he's been really, really good for the Padres. He has a 2.72 ERA with the Padres, in fact, over 43 innings. And he's also had a little bit of an uptick in his strikeout rate. And he's had more whiffs on a lot of his pitches. His pitch usage has changed a little bit. But I would caution against that. I still think that this is just a depth piece that they acquired because they said, you know what, Jack Flaherty might be going for too much, and instead I'd rather improve the bullpen, which looks like it was the right decision, by the way, in terms of prioritizing bullpen over the rotation. I was worried at the deadline, before anybody raises any questions, I was just worried that, were they just saying, let's have a dynamite bullpen, or were they saying, let's have a good bullpen, but we know that we're probably getting Darvish and Musgrove back. And it appears that that was part of the calculus, at least from my standpoint, of why they invested so heavy in bullpen, even if I do have some criticisms. We saw yesterday, my big thing is I don't like investing like crazy in a bullpen because they can be really volatile. I mean, just look at yesterday. The Mets need wins badly, and Edwin Diaz blew another save for them, and he's getting paid like $100 million, right? And by the way, he was good. Like, he was good. And you guys, I know I love my Puerto Ricans, but anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. Let's talk more about the game. One thing with Martin Perez, maybe he's got experience. There's something to be said. I think that if things go wrong, let's say Darvish, if he isn't worked fully back, maybe you do a little bit of a piggyback type of situation where Darvish goes 3 innings and then Perez goes 3 innings. Could do a lot worse than that, right? I actually would be a fan of that strategy. I think that Perez can still have a role, but I don't think he's someone that we should be like, he's our game 4 starter. We're 5 starters deep. I wouldn't expect that, especially with the fact that his FIP over this time is 4.87 with the Padres. That's not good, and that suggests that he's getting a little bit lucky, especially since none of the other stats, I know the strikeout rate is up, but I would just caution. And especially against postseason teams, I would caution expecting that you can roll in there and be like, Perez got this game. You know what I mean? I think that he needs a little bit more of a role and to be more effective for this team if they're going to be using him heavily in the postseason. But it wasn't just him for yesterday's game. We got some other stuff. Namely, the Padres were able to hit pretty well against the Giants when they needed to, and as they've been doing all year. The Giants pitching was great in this one for the most part. Guys like Landon Roop, never heard of him before, but he did good, didn't give up any runs in 5 innings. But the Padres, as they've been doing all year, produced when it mattered most. Starting with our boy Manny Machado hitting a sac fly in the top of the 6th inning. That's another reason I wasn't fully locked in the whole game, because nothing really happened until the 6th inning, right? Like, there wasn't really much that happened there. Donovan Walton hit a home run off of Martin Perez, the 1 run that he gave up. Then Tatis, 1-1 game, again, really slow one. Tatis hitting the go-ahead homer in the top of the 8th inning. That was huge. Pinch hit for Nando. He has been on fire. He looks like that guy that has that edge that come postseason. And by the way, he's had a lot of postseason moments. We know this already. He didn't, unfortunately, in 2022. He was suspended. But we had the wild card series. We had the 2020 series. Like, we've had some really, really good moments with Tatis in high leverage, just big moments. Even if it's like somewhat, not crazy stuff in terms of like it mattering in the grand context of making the playoffs, like the Astros series, 2 outs, 0-2 count, hitting the 3-run home run. I remember I was in DC watching him at a Nationals game, watching it on my phone with my friend who's a Padres fan. That was a blast. You look at just say the way he showed up against Trevor Bauer. He sucks, obviously. We know we hate Trevor Bauer, but like two home runs off of him and then making fun of him with the eye thing. Like, he's just always risen to the occasion, and he seizes the moment better than anyone. Pinch hit home run for him. Unfortunately, Robert Suarez does blow the game. And I'm not really upset at him because, like I've said, he's been so good all season. But 2.59 ERA now. Low-key has crept up. He has been a little bit worse, and this was one of the reasons why I didn't, for basically the majority, if not all of this season, I didn't put him in my elite tier of relievers. I think he's in the super great, like, demigod. You know what I mean? Like, he's right there, but I still think that guys like Class A, for example, of Cleveland are better. I think there's a little bit better relievers than him because he doesn't always get as many strikeouts as you'd like, considering he's a guy that throws super hard and likes to throw that fastball and go after hitters. Doesn't get as many strikeouts as you would like. Heliot Ramos, who's come up clutch for the Giants a couple times this year, bottom of the 9th, ties the game. Thankfully, Suarez does not blow the game entirely. And then top of the 10th inning, David Peralta gets a single. How good has he been this year? And then Donovan Solano gets a sacrifice ground out. Michael Conforto, he does get the sac fly, right? He does. And I was a little bit nervous. I was watching Morejon. I was a little bit nervous, but it was 1 run, not earned because of the, the ghost zombie runner on second thing. Morejon, I've talked about him before. He still makes me nervous, right? Like, there are guys in this bullpen that make me nervous. And there are some guys who have been awesome, but in general, this Padres bullpen has been so good since the deadline, since they retooled it, and it's the type of thing that helps you win, right? If you can supplement the starting rotation, if you can add on to your starting rotation in areas that you don't feel great about, like your Darvish, like your Perez, maybe even your Musgrove, if you have a great bullpen behind them, you just feel so good about your pitching. So great all-around game for the Padres. We got to talk about 2 more, though, before we get into the mailbag section, which I know you guys can't wait for. But there were other really fun developments this weekend. It was a great weekend. Seriously. We love it. So let's talk about it in just a second, guys. But first, I need to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. I don't know why I'm rolling this out so slow, but it is what we do on here, guys. FanDuel.com. Here's the thing. You've heard about FanDuel by now. It's America's #1 sportsbook. They're fantastic. And now through September 22nd, just 6 more days of this offer, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So seize the moment. Carpe diem. Go get on this offer. Hey, I was just talking to you guys about how I was watching football yesterday. It is great with YouTube TV. They really give you every game, all the boxes, everything. It's great coverage, great service. You're going to love that very much. Then with the YouTube base plan, of course, you'll be able to watch all the regular season games for the rest of the season, Sunday afternoon, out of market, at whatever it is, whatever, early afternoon, whatever it is, that's out of market, you will get it. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Fantastic stuff, guys. So just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook, and you know the rest. Go check it out. And just like that, folks, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing into segment number 2. I also want to mention that our boy Luis Arraez, 2 for 4 in this game with a double and a walk. He looked great. Arraez is starting, and then David Peralta also was 2 for 4, but for the most part, not a lot of offense. Arraez is starting to have that thing that always happens with him. And don't get me wrong, there are some ways where, and I've talked about this on the show a lot, where he can sometimes be an overrated player. But I say sometimes because I think most people who follow and cover baseball know his value, which is a really good hitter and a pest, right? But I think that, yeah, there are the old heads and the people you'll see on TV acting like he's, Tony Gwynn, right? And that he's, better than like any other player, and that because he hits over 300 every year, when that's just not accurate when you take into account the base running, the defense, and the lack of power. So I think that it does depend, but all in all, he's starting to have that like comical aspect of his game. And here's what I mean by that. You get all these stats that are like, he's only struck out twice since the All-Star break. Obscene numbers. Like, this is why we like Arraez. Like, yeah, he's not Mike Trout, right? This isn't the 1970s where these type of players were considered the best or anything like that, because he really doesn't hit for power. But like, it's just so fun. Like, how can you not root for a player like this? He's just old-fashioned baseball, and it's just really cool to watch, and he's been actually producing at a great level. And you saw that also in Saturday's game, where he goes 2 for 6 with a double as well, an RBI in this one, his batting average up to 320, for those that are curious. But, guys, as evidence, it's not just about Luis Arraez, although I must say, Arraez has been cooking for a while now, since August 20th, in fact. Or I'm sorry, August 2nd. Hold on. Do I have this right? What am I looking at here? Yeah, August 2nd, he has been really, really good. Just tremendous stuff for Luis Arraez. 361, 399, 424 slash line. That's good for a 136 WRC plus. So again, he's not hitting for power, but he's never striking out, and he's doing the thing where he just keeps putting the ball in play. Multiple multi-hit games. The guy's been on fire. You gotta love that. But he wasn't the only one in this game. Fernando Tatis Jr. goes 3 for 6 in this one with a home run. Jurickson Profar. Oh, it feels like Profar's been slowing down. No, he hasn't. He's still been very good. 1 for 2 in this game with 3 walks from the guy. Manny Machado also showing up in this game with an RBI, 2 hits, and a double in this one. Does strike out twice, but it's okay. Xander Bogaerts, 1 for 5, but with a shot, an absolute shot in this one, a home run. Again, he's just one of those guys that whatever you can get for this season, you just absolutely take it. Donovan Solano, though, was the real hero of the game. 3 RBIs, or I'm sorry, three doubles. My mistake. 3 doubles in this game, 4 for 5 in total. Solano, man, this is why, and it was actually recently commented on. I forgot which is the player that mentioned it or who brought it up, but it was like, you really want to try and find out ways to get Solano into lineup. He's not just a bench bat. I think Peralta is someone who's a little bit more of a bench bat because he is just, getting up there in age, and he's like a veteran guy, and Tatis always needs to be playing right field, obviously. But with Solano, my thing is this guy draws walks, and he's kind of been what Arraez was supposed to be when he first got there. With the Padres, and he's just been hitting nonstop. So shouts to Solano. I hope they find more ways to get him into the lineup. I like that they move Bogaerts to shortstop. He's looked pretty comfortable there, made a couple good plays already defensively, and that allows you to put Jake Cronenworth at second and then Solano at first. So again, I'm telling you guys, because this lineup construction, we're going to see. I can't wait to see how the Hassan Kim sweepstakes go in the offseason. We'll see. I think it's going to be interesting. I think if it's a low deal, they might do it, but we'll see. We're going to see, because the way that if Bogarts is good, why not just hope that Bogarts is good instead of signing a shortstop guy when you have it also one of your top prospects who's a shortstop too. But anyway, that's for another podcast, guys. Last thing, Joe Musgrove. He's been a little bit like wild since coming back off the IL, in the sense that he has these starts like he did against San Francisco his last time against them, where he goes 4 1/3, and he was dealing, by the way, for a lot of it, and then gets absolutely bombarded in one inning. But I did mention in the last start that it was one really weird inning, and that might have been cause to believe that it was just a weird inning and whatnot, and it was. He goes 6 innings in this one, no earned runs, only 3 hits, no walks, and 8 Ks. My goodness, Joe. My goodness, those people have families on the Giants. You can't be doing that. My goodness. I mean, am I the only one that thinks this is cruel and unusual punishment? My gosh, Musgrove looked excellent, guys, like absolutely excellent. I really do think that there's a pretty good chance that he ends up being the starter in game 1. The sweeper was working, the curveball was working, it looked great, the movement was solid, all the velocity was still up there, as it has increased with every start, and it's still up there, it's not gone down. This isn't a thing where he just came off the IL and was great, and now he's starting to get fatigued or anything like that. No, he looks great. I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Padres are like, this is our dude, he's got the experience, he's had the big games, he's done really well in the playoffs before us already, shouts to the New York Mets. He's going to get the game 1 ball. I would not be surprised by that, because he's been that good. So shout out to Joe Musgrove, and shout out to the rotation as a whole. I talked about Perez, and we also got a great start in Friday's game from someone who, you know, I'm just happy that he proved me right. Maybe he's getting hot at the exact right time. He went through a weird spat, right? We talked about it. Dylan Cease in Friday's game. We talked about this on the last show, I'm pretty sure, which is that when you look at his monthly stats, 2.6 ERA in April, 4 in May, 4.94 in June, when we were actually starting to wonder about him a little bit, then 2.35 in July, 4.43 in August, and 3.71 so far in September, because he absolutely lit the Giants up on Friday. 6 innings, no earned runs, nothing, just 2 walks and 10 strikeouts. So here's the thing. This is why I think Musgrove is the guy, because I think Musgrove and King especially are like these guaranteed quality starts, it feels like. I just really think that that's what we're looking at right now. I really think that the consistency and just the heart is with Musgrove. And Cease is the type of guy that against great competition, I could see him going in and giving us a start like this, where you don't even need to worry about the bullpen too much. So Cease, the upside is there's no pitcher with a greater upside, I think, than Dylan Cease, because he's the type of guy who could go 7 and strike out 11 and give up 1 hit. That is totally possible, even in a postseason series. So we're going to see how that pans out, but it wasn't all about him, of course. It's never just about one guy, as you know, everybody. In general, I love what I saw this weekend. There's a lot of little tidbits of things that I liked, but Padres offense, again, produced. Tatis with a home run, Arraez 3 for 4 in this one with a walk as well. Jurickson Profar 2 for 5. Manny Machado with a double, going 2 for 5 as well. Xander Bogaerts had a double as well, which was nice to see. Always nice to see power from him. And then 2 doubles from Jackson Merrill, padding those Rookie of the Year stats, breaking extra base hits records by rookies, especially for the Padres. He was great. Merrill, man. I mean, Merrill being down there in the lineup and it working is pretty amazing. I think that Merrill, I just don't see how. And I really don't think Skeens is going to win. I just don't see it anymore. He deserves a lot of votes, and I think it should be close, frankly. I really do. I think that's how good Skeens has been, because you just don't see that very often. But what Merrill has done, I think, for the Padres, and this is not Skeens' fault, but guess what? There's a lot of other things that depend on where you land, so let's not act like the wins and being on a winning team is the only somewhat arbitrary thing that goes into deciding how a player's career goes, right? Just ask Mike Trout that. I think that what we're seeing is the Padres hit an amazing second half, and they've been dominant, and they might even possibly win the division. It's possible, right? So you look at all that, you take that into account, and Merrill's been winning games in the 9th inning, making good plays defensively in the outfield for a position he didn't even play before this year, and he's 21 years old. He's hitting for more power than anyone expected. I just think it's got to be him at this point, but awesome stuff from him. Some final tidbits. I did like Jurickson Profar bunting in the extra innings. I just thought it was interesting. He's been a little bit weird with batting lately, and maybe they're kind of thinking, I mean, he can't come through in every high leverage situation, right? I just love that he bunted knowing that he had, and on Sunday's game, in extra innings, knowing that you have a Merrill behind you and a Donovan Solano. not a bad idea. I wouldn't be doing it too much going forward, only because it should be noted that Jurickson Profar has been like genuinely the best bat overall this year for this team, and he's also good against lefties or righties. It doesn't matter, being a switch hitter. So I don't know. I appreciate the fact that they trust each other. You look at some of the quotes this weekend from Joe Musgrove talking about how on the same page everybody is. Really good vibes all around. Like, absolutely love to see that. So I'm okay with it. I just trust the team so much. And shouts to my Australian homie, you know who you are, who sent me the stat. On Sunday's game, the Padres had their 9th victory in 10 extra innings games. It also made them 30-22 in games in which they lost a lead at some point. Last season, they were 2-12 famously in extra innings and 18-1 in games in which they lost the lead. And he said, what a difference a year makes. Agreed. I will say, just as a little bit of a peek, now this is off-season and 2025 season preview stuff. As I talked about before the season, one of the only things I've been right on was that this team was going to do better based on history in high leverage and clutch situations. I didn't know that they would be far and away the best at it of any team, but it does mean the opposite can also be true, right? My whole thing was saying you can't be historically bad and then be historically bad again. That just doesn't happen. You're going to have some positive regression. Some negative regression might be due for the Padres next year when it comes to clutch. But I wouldn't worry too much about that because I think the roster is solid. I think the thing that is flukier was how bad they were, not how good they were, if that makes sense. I don't think that, if you're a team like the Mariners, go look up the Mariners, I think it was 2021, I believe, when they were like the most clutch team in the sport, and then they weren't very good as good the next year, right? And their roster wasn't great outside of Julio Rodriguez and a Ty France. It wasn't like they had superstars on the team. The Padres do. So even if they do regress in that area, I think that the overall talent of the roster can make up for if they're just the halfway in terms of high leverage situations, right? But whatever it is, that's for another year. Just enjoy the ride, folks. And we're going to talk about some of your questions and comments that you sent me. And I like them very much. So this is going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into that, guys, I just want to take 1 second to talk about our friends over at Prize Picks, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. The #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players and their stat projections, and you just watch them winnings rolling, baby. It's just as simple as that. And speaking of simple, Caleb Williams. You might have saw him on Sunday night. He looked pretty great at points. Didn't look great the rest, but guess what? He helped you, if you checked out the offer, get you a free win on Prize Picks, because one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. So you've got a little bit more time. So get in on that 4 weeks of free W's, maybe 2, however many. Get the free W's, guys. So go check that out. Don't miss the deal on Prize Picks because it's going to be gone as soon as September ends. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Pick with as little as 4 correct picks. Is the best way to get in on sports action, including California, Texas, and Georgia when it comes to states that you can check it out. And they've got also these community tabs. Some fun celebrities like Drewski and Joe Budden are in on this as well. MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley, he's part of it as well. They've got all sorts of deals coming in. They've got some injury insurance for all of your plays. Really, really great stuff. So what are you waiting for? Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast. 3rd segment, thriving and vibing as always. Let's answer some of your questions. One of the questions I got a lot from just, not a lot, I got from like a few people. So shouts to you out there. So a couple from just some friends as well that were sending this to me. I just wanted to address this really quickly. That Blake Snell, we love you very much. Blake Snell threw a little bit of a pizza party, and apparently it's something that he would do with the Padres like pretty often, which I very much like. I think that it came out, there was a thing that basically he sent like some pizzas to the front office, and he said, "Dear Padres front office, I miss y'all and hope everybody's been lit this season. Pizza and cookies on a Friday, never hurt nobody. Love, an old friend, Blake Snell." Yeah, guys, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie, I'm buying into it a little bit that like maybe a reunion could be in store. Maybe and in fairness, I think he's done this before. He's not only doing it now, but I think that, and how would I feel about it? I would say that Snell, I genuinely believe, is my favorite pitcher in baseball. And the reason is because he's so weird in the way he pitches, the way that he looks like. I mean, he looks like, remember Jake Arrieta when he was with the Padres? He looks like he cannot get anybody out if he doesn't have his warm-up and you don't let him, get into the swing of things in the middle of the season. I don't know many pitchers like this that consistently every year turn it on. He's been electric for the Giants this year. The problem is that they signed him late, so on top of the fact that he didn't get any preseason spring training stuff, it just took him so long to get into it, and then he looks untouchable. And then he's also really funny, his WRC Plus comments during the pregame. You guys remember all that. I haven't heard as many fun, I feel like, in-game things with Blake Snell this year, in-game conversations and interviews, as it was with the Padres and Ursillo and them. I mean, not everybody can have Ursillo, don't get me wrong. We love you, Don and Mud, but I think he's so funny. I think he's just really clever and insightful in a very like idiosyncratic way, and he's a very good pitcher. So I would love for them to sign him because I genuinely think he's my favorite current pitcher in the game. Don't know if that's the direction they should go, only because you have King and Cease on the team, and maybe it would prove more fruitful to try and get them for maybe a tiny bit less, or just extend those guys who have been great, and they don't have that volatile, annoying, like, hey, in fairness, how many years can we expect him to always turn it around? The way we can always expect Ethan Hunt to accomplish a mission in Mission Impossible, right? Like, how many times do we keep wanting to bet on the impossible, the crazy outcome still coming true? So that's what I'm saying in terms of him, but also, I love it. And maybe this is a little bit of a hit. It would be so fun to bring him back, and it would be so disrespectful to the Giants, a team I have no beef with, but it would be funny. It would be very funny. I have so many like kind, cool Giants fans, including Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants. Go check out his show. He does a great job. Moving on though, always with the insightful questions, Mr. Ramamurti, he asks, question for Monday's show, is it safe to say the AJ Preller and Bob Melvin not being on the same page and parting ways thing has turned into a blessing in disguise? I think so, because we got Mike Shildt and better coaches like Victor Rodriguez. Curious to hear your thoughts. Also, how did AJ Preller fleece Brandon Lockridge from the Yankees for Enyo De Los Santos, who was awful for them and then got DFA'd? I have no idea. I thought that the Santos thing was just like, hey, take this guy. We don't think he's any good. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. No, the Yankees been getting fleeced by us lately, man. We're making some good deals with that team. We should keep calling up Cashman. See if Jazz Chisholm's available if they need a new outfielder or something like that. But I think that, so this is a tough question, because I will say that Shildt, I remember when I was still questioning the Shildt hiring, only because the Cardinals, historically, at least of the last like decade or so, are one of those like model organizations. So them firing Shildt, even though he was like a manager of the year and they had a good record, I was like, oh, maybe they knew something. You know what I mean? Because it is. But the Cardinals clearly don't know anything, because this is a team that has been run very poorly for a while. Go look up their recent trades that they've made. Go look up their recent moves. They've been bad. So actually, I think they are no longer that model organization. I think it's like the Dodgers. I think they're a good example of one. I think the Guardians, in terms of how they turn out talent, the Rays to an extent, the Brewers even to a little bit of an extent. This is, unfortunately they're missing the piece of having an owner that like cares. But like there have been model organizations out there, the Braves, right? Like that's a good example. I think that what we're seeing is the Cardinals had no idea what they were doing. I am hesitant. Hold on one second. A little bit of a cough there. I'm hesitant to give it all to Shildt and to blame Melvin. But I will say, it's not nothing. You know what I mean? I still stand by my opinion that the one commonality with all these Padres years, the 2019 second half, not collapse, but just a heinous display of baseball, the 2021 collapse, the 2023 nightmare, that the one commonality between all that is AJ Preller, as opposed to Bob Melvin, who was the manager of the team that won the most games that they've won under AJ Preller, which was 89 in 2022. So I'm hesitant to blame him. I really, really am. I just think that that's a little bit too much. But at the same time, you look at the Giants, there's been some weird vibes over there. Really weird vibes. So Melvin, while having a really great record, maybe he's got a little bit of that Doc Rivers thing going. You know what I mean? For anybody who follows the NBA, maybe he's got a little bit of that Doug Peterson thing going, where they're like not bad managers, but their record, there seems to be something missing. But I'm really still hesitant because I think that this is more, if I had to do something with the Giants, I think it's a front office thing. I think Snell, if I'm a Giants fan, I'm livid. Not at Blake Snell necessarily. I mean, maybe a little bit him, but like I'm livid that it's like this guy might be giving clues that he's ready to go back to the Padres, and you didn't trade him. He has an option for next year that he can just ignore and test free agency. Why didn't you trade him at the deadline? Why are you? It just feels like a team that the GM and the decisions they've been making, that they keep having all this space to sign stars. And granted, they have tried, and we talked about this with Ben Caspick of Locked On Giants, but I think it's more of an organization thing with the Giants being a little bit weird lately. But that's just me. I appreciate it though. And again, I don't know how they got Lockridge. Just a nice little piece. You know what I mean? For nothing. So shouts to them. Moving on though, at Zachary Shelton on Twitter, at MovieFanZ1720. First of all, love that. We love MovieFanZ. He says, maybe you can use this for the next mailbag episode. I know the season is coming to a close in terms of the regular season, but what is your favorite part of the season? This is a great question. And honestly, you know what, Zach? I'm going to save this for tomorrow. Because I think it's good enough to talk about as a whole after we do the game recap of the Astros. I don't want to spend all time talking only about the Astros. But my initial one that I'll tell you, because I want to give multiple favorites. I think my favorite is the Cubs comeback. I really do. I think the Cubs comeback is my favorite. It's close. We had some great series against the Dodgers. I think Profar's hit against Will Smith is another one. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about more of those. We're definitely going to do an episode as the season winds down that dedicate only to that. But I'd say those are the two. The Cubs come back when they came back from 8 because it was so early and it was so cool to see. Just like this team that could not make a comeback from 1 run down so early on in the season show, hey, we're not like last year with Tatis putting us over the top. That was great. The Dodgers games, I think that my favorite though, even though it wasn't like, you know, the Arraez walk off and stuff like that. And I think my favorite is the Profar moment. I think after Will Smith called him irrelevant and then hitting that bases clearing double, I think that's my favorite. But great question, Zach. Might even talk about it a little bit more on tomorrow's episode. We shall see, depending on how tonight's game goes. But moving on to the next question from, it was not a question as much as a comment. RSV Jr. 619 on YouTube says, Javi, no one, except you maybe, is talking about how unreliable our bullpen has become in high leverage spots. Suarez is not a lock, Estrada is okay, Monahan has zero confidence, Yuki has no control, and our new guys from the trade deadline are good, then bang, home run that cost us the lead. I have been impressed month after month at the improvements that the offense has made. Clearly there's a camaraderie that has carried throughout. But Niebla's squad doesn't fill me with any confidence if it's playoff time and we need to hold a 3-run lead, much less a 1-run lead. Hoping for the best, but I'm not going to sugarcoat things. And a reply to that said, in a 3-game series, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Says at bnegs521, but the Padres could be out in the first round or could go all the way. I think that comment kind of emphasizes a little bit. I still have questions about this Padres bullpen because I think that Suarez, who we talked about, where I was really reluctant, I think he's a very good, like awesome reliever, don't get me wrong, but there was questions where I was like, you know, early on in the season, I was hesitant to call him an elite reliever because I think that there's a lot of good relievers in baseball, guys. But for me, I think that it's Yuki I'm worried about. It's Monahan I'm worried about too. Monahan has steadily been, he's still good. These are good players. We're not having a question about good. I am just a little bit worried about high leverage. They've been good overall in high leverage because of the trade deadline guys. With Tanner Scott, with Jason Adam, who's been amazing. Brian Hoeing has shown some stuff at points. Sean Reynolds. So to me, while I do have questions about the high leverage spots, Yuki Matsui to me is the only one that I don't want to see in a high leverage position, which frankly in the postseason could be at all. So I'm really scared of seeing him at all. Estrada, there does come a point though where you just have to use guys. You know what I'm saying? You can't just use Jason Adam every day. You can't just use Brian Hoeing every day. You can't just use all of those guys all the time. Robert Suarez for every inning. But all in all, I think that they just have so many relievers to go to that you feel great about outside Matsui. I am worried about though Adrian Monahan. I've been saying this all season. He just looks like he loses it a little bit in high leverage. Looks like he's got a little bit of a confidence thing maybe in that area. But all in all, it's still electric because you can go to so many different guys. And that's why I think that this bullpen is still going to be hopefully a plus for this team with Hoeing, with Tanner Scott, with even Alec Jacob showing some stuff as of late. We don't have to worry about, you know, Stephen Kolek and Enel De Los Santos and Wandy Peralta. They have so much depth there that I'm really excited to see what they do with him. With this bullpen, I just think that they have more options. So I am worried about it, and I agree with you, sir. But I think that it's almost like there's nothing you can do. Because even a team like Cleveland that has like the best bullpen in baseball, I wouldn't be like shocked if they just have a game where they blow a lead because it's the playoffs. So you can't hate on them too much. And hopefully the starting pitching performs enough that you don't have to use in the 4th inning a Yuki Matsui, because that would be a low leverage if it's that early in the game, but I still don't want to see him, right? So you want to hopefully just that the rotation could give you those 6 innings, and then you can only bring in the best relievers. That's what I'm hoping for, but we're going to have to see, man. We're going to have to see. And that is it for today. We're going to talk more on tomorrow's episode about my favorite parts of the season and another comment about the starting pitching rotation that my guy Tony Sue left. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, guys, but we'll also be recapping the first game in this Astros series, playoffs. Man, it's a good vibe. The Mets currently, just to fin this out because I forgot to talk about it, we're looking good. I'll be giving a playoff update every day. 85 wins there, 2 games ahead of the D-backs thanks to this sweep, and then 4 games ahead of the Braves, who have the 3rd spot, and the Mets are tied currently with the Braves. And remember, Dodgers have 88 wins, Padres have 85. Pay attention to every single Dodgers game, because if they are in range, they play the Dodgers soon. And if they play the Dodgers and win, we might get the NL West crown. That's huge. But for now, and just in terms of making the playoffs, we're looking pretty dang good, guys. But of course, anything can change. Keep it locked here on Locked On Padres, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Man, I've been coughing randomly today's episode. This is weird. But anyway, only pod that could be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to check out all my stuff on social at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, at L_Padres. My apologies for the late upload. Won't be happening as much, especially after Wednesday, I believe. Will be a little bit more free. I've just been having some hectic things and some things I'm applying for, some work I've been having to do at night. My apologies, guys, but we will be back to getting some timely uploads, especially for this final stretch and playoff time. So look forward to that. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies, take care.